We all know the dream, don't we? You buy a little piece of land, put up a beautiful chicken coop that costs around $100, spend $25 on a bag of feed every couple of weeks, and imagine yourself walking out each morning with a basket full of fresh eggs. It sounds peaceful, productive, and almost perfect, but then reality shows up. You wait 5 months, sometimes 6, before you collect your very first egg. And by the time those hens finally begin laying, you may already have thousands of dollars tied up in a setup that gives you maybe $10 worth of eggs in a good week. At that point, that is not really a farm business. That is an expensive hobby. And here is the part many new small farmers discover the hard way. The system was never really designed in favor of the small producer. Modern commercial agriculture often depends on high startup costs, large space, expensive infrastructure, and a long wait before you ever see money coming back. For someone working with a backyard, a small homestead, or a tight budget, that can feel discouraging fast. But what if there were an animal you could start with for less than $300? What if that animal could begin producing in about 6 weeks, fit into a tiny suburban backyard, and still be scaled into a real income stream of around $3,000 a month when managed correctly? I am not talking about chickens. I am not talking about goats. I am talking about Coturnix quail. Welcome back to Farmyard Care. Today, we are going to break down one of the most overlooked micro-livestock options in backyard farming. Coturnix quail have been hiding in plain sight for generations, and yet many homesteaders still ignore them while spending far more money on animals that take longer, eat more, and need more space. By the end of this video, you will understand the basic blueprint, the real numbers, and the practical lessons you can use to turn a small $300 starting point into a serious $3,000 a month farm income stream. So if you are ready to stop wasting money on setups that barely pay you back and start building real self-sufficiency from a small space, let's get into the math. Section 1, the $300 startup blueprint and the magic of micro-livestock. Let's begin with the first thing that stops most beginners before they ever get started, the startup cost. If you want to raise cattle or pigs, you usually need thousands of dollars, strong fencing, shelters, equipment, and a good amount of land. But quail change that whole picture. They are one of the best examples of small space livestock, and that is exactly why farmers in places like Japan, and even ancient cultures such as Egypt, valued them for so long. They are small, efficient, and capable of turning very little space and feed into real production. Here is the simple $300 starting plan. You do not need to begin with 500 birds. In fact, you should not. Start with 50. You can buy 50 fertile hatching eggs online for around $25 to $40. Add a basic tabletop incubator for about $50 to $60, then build a simple wire cage yourself for roughly $50 to $75. With that setup, you can have your first starter flock going for less than $200 to $300. And this is where quail become exciting. Coturnix quail hatch in only 17 to 18 days. Then, in about 6 short weeks, those tiny chicks grow their adult feathers and begin laying eggs. Think about that carefully. In less than 2 months, you can go from spending your first dollar to collecting your first harvest. Why wait half a year for a chicken to start paying you back when a quail can begin feeding your family in about 42 days? Section 2. Housing, space efficiency, and the secret legal advantage now. The next question is simple. Where do you put them if you do not have a barn? The answer is you do not need one. With quail, you can forget the idea that every productive bird needs a large chicken coop, roosting bars, and nesting boxes. Quail do not perch like chickens, and they usually lay their eggs wherever they happen to be standing, so the housing can stay simple, compact, and practical. A basic cage for 50 birds only needs to be around 4 feet by 12 feet, because each quail needs about 1 square foot of space. Even better, these cages can be stacked vertically in 2 or 3 levels inside a garage, shed, or covered patio. That means you can use your space upward instead of outward. With this kind of high-density setup, it is possible to keep around 150 birds in the same footprint many people would use for one ordinary chicken coop. And here is the quiet advantage many beginners overlook. In many cities and suburbs where chickens are restricted by zoning rules or homeowner associations, quail may still be allowed. They are often treated as game birds instead of standard poultry. That can mean fewer permit problems, fewer neighbor complaints, and much less drama. Male quail also make a softer, more musical call compared with a rooster, so they are far less likely to disturb the whole neighborhood. If city limits have made you feel blocked from raising your own food, quail may be one of the most practical doors into urban farming freedom. Section 3, the feed math. Where profits are actually made now, let's talk about the expense that decides whether a small livestock project makes sense or slowly drains your wallet. Feed. This is where Coturnix quail really stand out compared with many other backyard livestock options. A standard laying hen can eat about 115 to 130 grams of feed every day. A Coturnix quail usually eats only around 25 to 30 grams a day. That comes out to roughly $2 to $2.00 per bird each month. So, feeding a starter flock of 50 birds may cost only about $100 a month. But the real question is not just what they eat, it is what they return. A healthy Coturnix hen can lay 250 to more than 300 eggs per year. That means for about $24 in annual feed cost per bird, you may receive up to 300 eggs back. That is an impressive feed-to-production ratio for any small farmer. And when you buy feed in 50-pound bulk bags instead of small quantities, you can often push that cost even lower. This is the kind of livestock math I like to see. Not working bigger just for the sake of it, but working smarter so every pound of feed has a clear purpose. Section 4. Income Pillar 1. The Premium Egg Market. Now let's talk about the money, because this is where the quail model becomes very interesting. If the goal is to build toward $3,000 a month, you cannot depend on just one product. You need several income streams working together, and the first one starts with eggs. Quail eggs are not treated like ordinary eggs in the market. They are small, beautiful, speckled, and often seen as a premium gourmet product. Restaurants, specialty buyers, farmers market customers, and homesteaders all value them differently than regular chicken eggs. Nutritionally, they also have a strong reputation. Quail eggs are known for having more iron, higher vitamin B12, and much more vitamin A compared with chicken eggs. At many farmers markets, 1 dozen eating eggs can sell for about $5 to $8. A flock of 50 laying hens can produce around 35 to 45 eggs a day, which means eating eggs alone may bring in about $125 to $150 a week when you have steady buyers. But do not stop there. If you keep a few healthy males with your hens, you can also sell fertile hatching eggs to other homesteaders who want to start their own flock. Those eggs often sell for $8 to $15 per dozen, and rare types like Celadon quail, which lay beautiful blue eggs, can sometimes reach around $35 per dozen. One important lesson from years of working with small livestock is this: know your local rules before you sell. In places like California, selling eggs commercially may require you to register as an egg handler. Keep eggs refrigerated at 45 degrees Fahrenheit and label them properly as ungraded. These details may seem small, but they are what separate a casual hobby from a real farm business. You can also add more value by making products such as pickled quail eggs and selling them at a premium to specialty stores or local food buyers. Section 5. Income Pillar 2. The hidden meat multiplier eggs are a strong starting point, but the profit multiplier many beginners overlook is meat. Quail meat is considered a delicacy, especially among chefs and customers who enjoy rich, flavorful birds. The taste is often described as something between chicken and duck, with a tender texture and a more premium feel than standard poultry. Because Coturnix quail reach maturity in only 6 to 8 weeks, you can run several processing cycles in one season. That speed is a major advantage. Dressed quail can sell for about $5 to $8 per bird at farmers markets, and in specialty shops they may bring around $12 to $16 per pound. The other advantage is labor. Processing quail is much faster than processing chickens. A skilled homesteader can take a quail from live bird to dressed, ready to cook carcass in about 1 minute. Instead of spending time plucking feathers like you would with chickens, many people simply skin the bird, which saves a huge amount of work. This matters because when you hatch your own eggs, about half of the chicks will usually be males. You do not need all those males in the breeding flock. By processing the extra males at around 6 weeks old, you turn what many beginners see as a problem into a high-margin product that can add hundreds of dollars a month to the operation. Section 6. Income Pillar 3. Live birds and community building. The third income pillar may surprise you, because in some areas it can outperform both eggs and meat. That pillar is selling live birds. Right now, more people are interested in backyard food production, small homesteads, and practical self-reliance. Many of them want to start, but they do not know where to begin. That is where a good small farmer can become the supplier, the teacher, and the trusted local source. With a reliable incubator, you can hatch new chicks every 17 days. Day-old quail chicks often sell for $3 to $5 each. If you raise them for a few weeks, juvenile birds can sell for around $5 each or more, depending on your local market and the quality of your stock. To increase profit, you can also sell breeding sets. A simple ready-to-start group of 4 females and 1 male can sell for about $40 to $60. Selling only 5 of those sets in a month can add another $200 to $300 to your income. And this is where the business becomes bigger than just birds. You can offer small farm tours, beginner workshops, or simple digital guides teaching people how to raise quail properly. At that point, you are not only selling eggs, meat, or live animals. You are helping build a more confident, educated, and self-reliant community. And in my opinion, that is one of the best parts of real farming. Section 7. Scaling from 50 to 500 birds, the $3,000 blueprint. Now we come to the big question. How does a small flock of quail turn into a $3,000 a month income stream? This is where we have to look at the numbers clearly. With 50 birds, if you combine eating eggs, fertile hatching eggs, meat birds, and live bird sales, that small starter flock can bring in around $500 to $800 a month when you have steady buyers. And because the feed cost for 50 birds is only about $100 a month, the margin can be surprisingly strong for such a small setup. Once you understand the daily care, the feed routine, the lighting, the breeding ratios, and the sales side, then you can think about scaling up to 500 birds. The advantage with quail is that they do not require acres of pasture or a huge barn. With proper housing, 500 birds can fit inside a standard 2-car garage or a small outbuilding. At that level, your feed cost may rise to around $1,000 a month. But if you are selling across all 3 income streams, eggs, meat, and live birds, your gross income can reach about $3,000 to $4,500 a month. After feed and basic utility costs, that can still leave around $2,000 to $3,000 in monthly profit. There are homesteaders raising around 200 quail on less than half an acre and grossing more than $40,000 a year. So the model is not just theory, but the key is to scale smart. Find your buyers before you expand. Talk to restaurants, build your local customer base, grow your online presence, and make sure your community wants what you are producing before you start incubating hundreds of eggs. Section 8. The fatal mistakes to avoid. Before you buy an incubator and start filling trays with eggs, there are a few mistakes you need to avoid. These are the mistakes that cause many beginners to lose money, lose birds, and quit before the system ever has a chance to work. Mistake number 1 is using the wrong feed. Chickens can do well on a 16% protein ration, but Coturnix quail need a much higher protein game bird feed, usually around 24% to 28%. If you feed them regular chicken feed, egg production can drop fast, sometimes by as much as 40%. Mistake number 2 is overcrowding. Yes, quail are small, but this does not mean you can pack them in carelessly. A good rule is about 1 square foot per bird. If you crowd them too tightly, stress builds quickly, and then you start seeing feather picking, fighting, and even cannibalism. Mistake number 3 is ignoring light. Quail need about 14 to 16 hours of light each day to lay consistently. In winter, natural daylight usually is not enough. A simple LED light on a timer can solve that problem and keep production steady. Mistake number 4 is poor biosecurity. Quail can be vulnerable to ulcerative enteritis, also known as quail disease, which is caused by Clostridium calinum. It spreads through droppings and can damage a flock very quickly. This is why many experienced growers raise meat birds on wire-bottom cages. It keeps the birds separated from waste and helps reduce disease pressure. Keep the housing clean, keep the birds dry, and your flock will have a much better chance of staying productive. The freedom of self-sufficiency. Now, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Imagine where you could be 1 year from now. You started with about $300, a simple cage, a bag of feed, and 50 small birds. A few months later, your freezer has premium meat, your family has fresh, nutrient-dense eggs, and every month, real money is coming in from an animal most people walk right past without understanding its value. This is not a dream that requires a 200-acre ranch, a giant barn, or a bank loan you can barely sleep under. This is a practical form of independence built from small livestock, smart management, and steady demand. Quail can pay for themselves in weeks when they are managed correctly. No huge land payment. No massive equipment bill. No waiting half a year for your first return. Quail do not just produce eggs and meat. For the right person, they can produce options, confidence, and a stronger connection to your own food supply. So the real question is this: are you ready to take control of at least one part of your food source? Or are you still waiting for the perfect time to begin? Let me know in the comments if you are thinking about starting your own quail flock this year, or if you still have questions before taking that first step. If this video helped you see what is possible on a small homestead, subscribe to Farmyard Care and turn on the bell so you do not miss the next practical farming guide. You do not need a fortune to build a farm that pays you back. Sometimes you just need the right bird, a simple plan, and the courage to start small. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.